Hey there, Dave Paulides, Canammissing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel. And you are at beautiful, beautiful Lake McDonald in Glacier National Park. You're looking east on the lake towards the Going to the Sun Road and some of those majestic peaks out there. Now, Going to the Sun Road is closed this time of year, and most of the road around the lake is also closed, but I'm in here to give you a little peek of what we have here in Montana. And I'll shift around and let you have a different view every now and then. Well, it's a Friday video, so that means we're outdoors. It means I'm going to give you a little different spin on things. And I'm going to start off telling you a little story. When Ben was going through his mental health issues, I went to a NAMI class and I learned about his condition. And he was diagnosed as bipolar. And in going through the classes and understanding bipolar, going to a psychiatrist and understanding the condition, one thing, friends, that I was deathly afraid of is that a lot of people with bipolar will completely drop out of the world, go as a missing person, wander away from their home, wander away from their freedom or their safety. And a lot of times they'll get beaten up, mugged, phone will be taken away, wallets, and they're gone. They may be alive somewhere, but you have no idea where they're at. And believe me, Ben and I had a lot of these discussions. When somebody is bipolar, they have these roller coasters of emotions. And when they're in their manic stage, everything's great, everything's loving. They tend to walk a lot, and they'll sometimes stay up for hours at a time. And during one of these phases, a family member and myself and another person decided that we would stay with Ben 24/7 to make sure that somebody was with him every time he went somewhere. He knew why we were there. And when I was there for 10 days, I think I walked away from his apartment shaking. I was so tired and so exhausted from staying up so much. And he was just fine. You would never know. You'd think he was rested 12 hours a day. But he was up 22, 23 hours a day for days at a time. And I guarantee he wasn't taking any drugs or narcotics because I was around him. But they're scary. And if we didn't have the ability to stay around him during those times, he was living and going to USC at the time, to their film school. He was living in USC housing, but it was on the verge of a really rough neighborhood. And some of the walks we'd take in the middle of the night would scare the heck out of me. And Ben was 6'2", 210 when he was playing hockey, and he got in some big time fights when he was playing. And he would always tell me, "Dad, don't worry, I can take care of myself." But as a dad who's worked as a police officer in those rough areas don't play fair. They don't care about you. There's no special boxing rules. There's no refs on the sidelines making sure you fight safely and correctly. And I knew it really wouldn't do a lot of good to explain all this to Ben at the time, but I just knew I had to hang in there with him. And we did. And that was before he left and got into religion. Those were scary times. Now, the reason I tell you this is because I know there's thousands of families out there that lost their loved ones under disappearances, just like I explained to you. And people are looking for them. And I have great compassion for those people. I'm going to tell you a story. Read you a story. It says, disappearance of body surfer from hospital in Hawaii, still a mystery 1 year later. Dateline, November 14th, 2021. Robby Gallagher was always pursuing waves. Whether it was body surfing, or just swimming, he found his happiness in the ocean. Growing up in San Diego, Robby and his brother Brian lived and breathed the beach life. It only made sense that Robby would one day make his way to the Hawaiian Islands. I think my dad paved the way for Robby, Brian told Dateline, explaining that in the late 70s, their father lived on the Big Island where he taught scuba diving and skippered boats. The family made trips to Hawaii over the years before Robby decided to move there permanently. He made it a point to pursue waves. He was drawn to them. Brian said he was an incredible surfer, swimmer, and most of all, he just loved the ocean. After graduating college with a degree in philosophy and business, Robby made his way to Oahu, where he later landed a stable job with a company that his brother also worked for in Colorado. We were extremely close, Brian told Dateline. We talked weekly anyway because we were co-workers, but also about the life in Hawaii and surfing. Robby didn't return to California until 2016 when their father passed away suddenly. Their father was hard on him, his mom said, Kathy. It was hard on all of us. I don't think he was ever the same after that. Robby moved back to San Diego to help his mom, but before long he couldn't take being in San Diego and needed to move back to Hawaii. In September 2020, months after the pandemic, despite a stable job and career lifestyle on the islands, Robby's family began seeing a decline in his mental health. The isolation really got to him, Brian said. For a while, he couldn't even go out and body surf. I think it really messed with his mind. So Robby's family attempted to get him help in both San Diego and Oahu. But he told us that the ocean is my therapy, Kathy said, and that he wanted just to be back surfing again. And phone call on October 31st was the last time she spoke to her son. She said he would infrequently call to check on her, but the call stopped. And when Kathy tried to reach Robby, there was no answer. He spoke several times a week, so it was unusual for him just not to answer the phone. And you know what? Ben and I had that agreement. Early on, I said, Ben, when you call me, I guarantee I'll pick up. If I don't pick up, I'm in the mountains and there's no service. But I guarantee I'll pick up, and I need that guarantee from you. And there's a couple of second hesitation. Ben goes, you got it, Dad. And forever after that, Ben picked up. Always. And I think that's an important agreement that we have to have with our kids. A phone call on October 31st was the last time she spoke to her son. She said he would frequently call to check on her, but the call stopped. We spoke several times a week, so it was unusual for him to not just answer. When Brian in Colorado and Kathy in San Diego, and it being the height of the pandemic, it was not easy for the family to get to Robby right away. After waiting several days for COVID test results, Kathy was finally able to catch a flight to Hawaii on November 9th. Once on the island, she told Dateline she discovered that Robby was last seen acting irrationally and told police stop, and local police stopped to help. They asked if he wanted to ride to the hospital, and he said yes. So Robby was transported to Kahuku Medical Center on Oahu's North Shore, but left before being treated. A few hours later, a woman reported seeing Robby attempting to open a door of a house near the medical center. He had dropped his body surfing fins, which were later confirmed by his family. Kathy told Dateline that she went by the house Robby had been living in with roommates, but no one had seen or heard from him. His belongings were left behind. She added that she later discovered his passport in his room at her home in San Diego. Robby's brother Brian continued to call his cell, and a few days after his disappearance, someone answered. It turned out to be a passerby who had found the phone on the side of the road in Waihawa, about 20 miles from the medical center, and took it home to charge it. The phone was given to Robby's family, but there was nothing that gave them any idea where it could be. Kathy filed a missing persons report with Honolulu PD, and tips of the sightings began pouring in. People have said that they've seen him in Waikiki, on the west side, on the north side, on the east side, on the south side. Kathy said it's very difficult. Went all over the island, and people say the island is small, and not to me, it's huge. Sergeant Chris Kim with Honolulu Crime Stoppers told Dateline that they also received a number of tips from the public in the beginning. Since then, the sightings have been few and far between, and none confirmed to have been Robby. Kathy's been to Hawaii 4 times since her son disappeared, and along with her son Brian, now lives back in San Diego. We've become like our own investigators, she said. The family set up a Facebook group, Missing Person in Oahu, Robby Gallagher, in order to provide updates. There's a chance he's not here with us anymore, Kathy said, but we know he loves us. We know he loves him. I'll keep praying he's still alive. Keep searching till I know otherwise. 6'1", 170 pounds. Robby Gallagher. If you're going to Hawaii, if you're going to Waikiki, if you live on Oahu, pay attention to this. Help Kathy out if you see him. This needs to be settled. And herein lies so much of the tragedy in mental health. Let's pretend for a second Robby's found, goes into a facility, and is being treated. Mom finds out somehow and goes there and starts talking to the physicians. Without Robby's approval, because he's an adult, Mom can't know anything. But her son is compromised in some way, his thinking ability. So who's the advocate for the son when he's not thinking right? Normally it'd be the parents. It's a very convoluted system that when the parents have the best intentions with their child, who may be 30 years old, the system isn't set up to work with the parents to get to that good ending. And that's what is so frustrating about this. I can't even begin to tell you. There are thousands of people just like Robby. Kathy's family is devastated. They take multiple trips. They can't find their son. Even if you did find him, let's say sleeping on a lawn in Oahu, on a public park, unless Kathy can prove to the police that her son is a danger to himself or a danger to others, he could still stay sleeping right there and nobody can bother him. Robby may not even know, because of his mental condition, that his brother and his mom are looking for him. It's horrible. Freaking horrible. So, it's a missing person case for today. Help out the family. And by the way, it is really cold here. It's about 21 degrees. It's supposed to snow here tonight. If you look at the water out here, it's really clear. The visibility is like 30, 40 feet in spots. And you're looking east. Now, that would be the north side of the lake. Big fire devastated part of that years ago. But this side never really got it. It's very, very pretty. All right. Next letter. Hey, Dave. I want to take a moment to tell you how much I appreciate you talking about mental health issue. I had someone very close to me commit suicide. It was a horrific event and left lasting scars on all who knew her. Yours is a voice of reason in a mad and chaotic world. Thank you for sharing your pain with us, as well as talking about the crisis in our society we're facing. You're a brave man with a great soul. Ben was blessed to have you as dad. I had a crazy experience in the mountains. Well, when you're wearing gloves, very hard to turn the pages. Okay, was late fall, a brisk but pleasant day. My friend and I went up the backside of the mountains to spend a couple of hours. We were not deep in the mountains. We were actually at a second picnic ground we came to. At that time in life, I bought a guitar everywhere with me. I had my guitar with me that day. We sat at a table, I took it out and began to play. Very shortly, a bluebird landed on the far end of the table, about 2 feet away, and just stared at us. Seemed kind of strange, but okay. After a while, my fingers started to get chilled, so I put away my guitar. The last piece of music I'd played, I had named the Fairy Song. When I put my guitar in the case, my friend and I heard that song being played, repeated back to us, only really fast. Almost like a hum. But we could make out the individual notes. Of course, we were curious, so we began to head in the direction of the sound, which seemed to be coming from up a path on a hiking trail. I can only say that it seemed like we were being lured deeper into the mountains. As we would walk, the sound would get softer and softer so that we could barely hear it. But when we would stop and discuss going back, it would get louder as if it was right around the next bend. I was getting a very bad feeling and wanted to head back to the car, but my friend kept wanting to continue. Eventually I balked and refused to go farther as it was getting dark. My friend insisted on going a bit further. Really scary now that I know about point of separation, but we came back after a few minutes. We turned and headed back to the car, and the music got really loud. Both of us felt very unsettled. We wanted to run, but it felt like if we did, it would just trigger an attack. Kind of how running from a dog will trigger its prey instinct. So we power walked back down the path until we made it back to the picnic ground and got the heck out of there. It's a strange story. Never heard anything like it. Thanks for sharing. It does seem like you were trying to be lured, though, in my humble opinion. Next story. Dave. Growing up, I lived beside a slice of 100 acres, mostly wooded land. There I spent most of my days on the trails I made for go-karts and ATVs. At the rear of the property, there was another couple 100-acre plot wooded as well. It was on this land that there's a small pond with good bass fishing. One day in the summer of 2007, I was fishing on the pond by myself. After being there for about an hour, I remember it really getting quiet. No wind, no birds, no harassment from squirrels. I began to smell something equivalent to a dead fish mixed with hot raw sewage. I kept fishing. But the smell was getting powerful. I put my pole down and began to search for the aroma, maybe a dead beaver nearby or some discarded fish. I looked around the pond, and remember, I know this place like the back of my hand. I found nothing. I went back to fishing with the smell coming and going. After a few casts, I heard a sound that was like a 4x4 post smacking a large tree maybe 40 yards directly behind me. Scanned the woods for a minute, but saw no movement. It's still very quiet in the woods. Started casting on the pond again. Once again, the sound of a 4x4 hitting a tree behind me, I heard it. I ignored it this time. Then 2 more consecutive smacks. Being unarmed in the woods by myself, I thought it was probably a good time to head home. Kept my eyes in the direction of the sound while walking back in that direction. Never saw anything or heard any more smacks. Don't think much of it at the time. Could have been a crazy person in the woods messing with me. That smell was something else, though. I didn't go back for a while after that, and when I did, I had my 12 gauge with me. This happened in Central Virginia. Second incident. Also, I remember a time deer hunting near the same pond. I was walking back home right before dusk when I could hear footsteps walking next to me as I walked. When I would stop, the sound of the footsteps would stop. The way I could hear them was over my own because the trail I was walking on was mostly dirt with minimal leaf litter. The woods were old growth and not very thick. I could easily see 30 yards into them, but never saw any movement. I decided a slight jog out of there was in order. A few months after that, I was awakened to what sounded like constant thunder at my home. I checked. The time was 2:30 a.m. I waited in bed for a minute for it to quit, but it wouldn't. I grabbed my Colt 1911 and slowly opened the back door facing the woods. Right above the treetops, about 50 yards in, was a black helicopter hovering with no lights. I watched it for a few seconds and closed the door. It continued to hover for a few more minutes after that. Weird as there is nothing in the woods. No landing zones, buildings, or structures, just the pond and the trail to it. Not sure if the two are related. Just weird. Thanks for that. Hi, Dave. Next letter. Hi, Dave. I know this sounds crazy and you're very busy, but I had to send you this. I tried to keep it brief without losing any context. Keep up the fight and don't ever give up. If we knew everything, there'd be no room for faith. Faith is the stuff of miracles and is what magic wishes it was. It's all true. The Bible, the enemy, good, evil, it's all real and it's all happening. Both sides are picking teammates, and if you don't choose, the choice will be made for you. We are influenced every day by powers, unseen forces we can only imagine about. If you pay close enough attention, you'll see it, if you haven't already. Scripture says God won't end the world until he has the right number of people for his army. When the end comes, whenever it is, he's going to build a new world, and that's what he's preparing for. It's all in Scripture. I wonder if the enemy, the devil, is trying to preemptively take out some of those that would be a force for greatness. It would be a feeble attempt unless he found a way to get their soul. Maybe. We come to earth to learn and grow from the experiences we have here. God chose us in advance and has a plan for us. People have no idea and don't want to realize everything we do. Some say, think, and matters and accounts. He will not waste our suffering as long as we don't give up on him. He's always there and his arms stretched out. He's my greatest friend and he wants to be yours too. He knows your pain. He knows your heart. He wants you to know it won't be wasted. There's a place on his team for you too. So, following Ben's quest for religious knowledge, I always have kept an open mind on all religions. And I'm sure some of you out there are trying to understand, trying to guess where I am on that religious spectrum, and that's my business. It's a personal thing. We are being influenced around us all the time. Folks, there are huge companies out there that put things out there on the internet that look like a real article, and it's complete propaganda. It looks like it's an investigative news source. It's all propaganda. As I've told you before, Cheryl Atkinson wrote a book called Smear. It was the biggest awakening in the media that I've ever had. And it told about all these different news groups that aren't really even news groups. They're media manipulation sites that are paid by different people to manipulate your mind. And I'm not talking either side of the political fence. They're there. They go to the highest bidder sometimes. So when you read something and you think, oh, gee, that's interesting, it's probably some kind of media manipulation. And that's what's hard to judge in today's world, what's true and what's not. This is an interesting article about cattle mutilations that I got. This person said, the sightings of UFOs and cattle mutilations are connected. There is a traditional theory of cattle mutilations at the hands of ETs. An alternate theory suggests a government entity is mutilating cattle as part of a disinformation campaign regarding UFOs. What I saw clearly that November night was a series of 3 lights and an acute triangle pointed upward. My uncle and I observed the object for 45 minutes. The lights would alternate between blue, green, and yellow. One aspect was the very visible falling condensation, much like cold gases, or when you open your freezer in humid weather. We estimated with my father's help the object was approximately 3 miles away, and the triangle formed by Big Sandy, Gilmer, and Gladewater, Texas that night, where there were numerous cattle mutilations. We were positioned at Lake Gladewater. As far as mutilations during my professional career, there were several cases at the base of the Toros mountain range in Turkey. The mutilations were identical in character. I've seen many other oddities that I cannot discuss. You know why? No, I don't know why. Regarding portals, this idea has merit. While overseas, I had 3 separate encounters with vanishing people. They actually winked out while walking away. One of those people left a red apple in place of where he was standing. Now I asked this guy a series of questions. Here was his response. My area of responsibility was the Middle East, North Africa, and I interacted with nomads in person at the base at the Taurus Mountains. I know about the mutilations through interviews because I speak their language, so no lost in translation scenario. After verifying with 2 separate tribes, there were camels and oxen mutilated. The horses were never touched. The nomads' camps are under watch around the clock, and no human has gone missing. Camels, the humps which are stored fat and not water, were not removed. What was removed was the eyes, genitalia, livers, and brains. There was no split blood or blood in the body. The oxen mutilations tracked the same way cow mutilations do here in the States. The nomads described the oxen as being hollowed out along with all sensory organs. Again, no blood in or around the animals. The predation, no flies, no maggots, and very little odor. A young nomad boy added the smell aspect. These mutilations occurred during the annual winter-summer migration of these nomads. I can only speculate the timing is opportunistic since the herds would not have complete coverage or protection during the migration. Topic interests me a lot. And I've been on site of several mutilations. No tracks, no smells, no odor, no blood, sometimes very small puncture wounds. And it's the same things missing from the body as this man just explained. It's a very odd scenario. Now, when I first got onto this many years ago, the news media had poo-pooed the idea and said, oh, you know, it's a satanic ritual, it's human cause. That's all complete garbage, folks. Okay? Some of the brightest minds I know of in this world have worked on this topic. And they are not sure what's going on. They have some idea, just like this man said, it might be partially a group of black ops that are trying to understand what is going on. And so they're trying to operate at night just like these incidents occur. And it's all over the world. It's been happening for decades and decades and decades. It's not localized, but these animals are always put back almost identically to where they were taken from. I've always believed that is a message. If these things have the ability to take animals at any time, anywhere, without being seen, and they have the ability to place them any place they want. They can put them in the middle of a lake, in the middle of the mountains, and you'd never find them, and they just went missing. But no, they put them back so you can see the damage that's done to them, and they're trying to send our stupid minds a message. Yeah. Well, those are the letters for today. And that is the view for today. And I got to tell you, I could sit here day and night and just watch that, because it doesn't get much better. The water may look a little green, but that's not algae. There's no algae here. This water is so cold. And yeah, they've got some really big fish in here. But the Park Service has so many restrictions on boats going into this lake. They're afraid of certain infestations of certain species that your boat has to sit in dry dock for a month before it can come into this lake. Yeah, it's not really conducive to bringing a boat here and fishing. Part of the lake has some homes on it that are on a 100-year lease from the Forest Service. And some of those have a dock, but I very rarely this summer did I see anybody out on this lake on a boat. But wanted to give you just a little different look of what's in my backyard and let you know that think about you guys all the time. If you've read one of my Missing 411 books, I'd really appreciate it if you went on to Amazon and left a review. If you've watched the movies, Missing 411 or Missing 411 The Hunted, I'd appreciate it if you went out and reviewed that on Amazon as well. It would really help us. Give us a thumbs up on the video if you like it, and post it on your social media. And all the support, kind words, they're appreciated. So this is Dave Paulides, signing out.